Last week was a pretty short issue, but this week it's veritably monster-sized, so I've got a lot to talk about. The number of simul series updating weekly apparently is going to go up to 25 after the shift to the new style of website. And I'm going to say right now, I'm not going to be talking about all of those. It's just way too much to keep track of. Uh, so my plan is to take the series that are currently in the weekly issues, add in Actage, because that seemed like an interesting story, and also Hell's Paradise and My Hero Vigilantes from the free section. Additionally, I think that I might follow the story that they just added this week, Neolation, which follows a super hacker named Arata and a guy named Daigo who, this is a pretty familiar situation, is in a mountain of debt because his dad died. And so Daigo lives with his sister as opposed to a devil dog. And the loan sharks, who they are paying off, decide kind of arbitrarily to forge a document claiming that they owe more than they actually do to force them to pay more. But luckily, Arata had had a run-in with them earlier. He accidentally spilled coffee on one of them. And so they took a photo of him so that they could track him down after treating the burns and beat him up. But he hacked their phone to delete the picture so they couldn't find him. And while they did that, he just so happened to wiretap the phone. And so he has audio of them discussing how they're going to forge this document and how, oh, no one's going to be able to find out because those two are so poor they can't take us to court anyway, even if they do find out that we made a fake document. So they get arrested, although not because Arata told the police about the forgery, actually because he hacked the police database to match their photos to descriptions of terrorists. I imagine that could have some repercussions later, as now there are a couple terrorists who are no longer being looked for, although maybe the police will realize the mix-up. But if they really realize the mix-up, then they'd let the loan sharks go, so I don't know. Either way, it didn't seem like a very well thought out plan, but Arata doesn't particularly care, because he isn't out for justice. That's not his motivation. He just enjoys seeing smug people end up in terrible situations. That's his whole thing. That's what he enjoys doing. To that end, actually, he is going to try and clean up the crime in the city, but again, just because he thinks it'll be entertaining to watch. And he says that the one criminal he's going to leave is himself. So, doesn't seem like a typical protagonist, kind of an anti-hero type of person. But it is quite a coincidence that last issue we got a guy in a mountain of debt who ended up getting relieved of it within the first chapter because the people he owed money to got taken away. But now he's in the service of someone who seems to be maybe not entirely on the up and up, kind of getting a weird vibe from them. Because Arata does get Daigo to come on as his muscle, because Daigo feels like he has to make it up to him for helping him out. But despite the similarities, I think this could be interesting in its own way because it has kind of a Dr. Stone-esque way of explaining how Arata is doing the stuff he's doing. For example, when the loan sharks are trying to make their getaway, he delays their getaway by using the back door he has into the phone to superheat it, a la Samsung Note 7. And so then he explains that, yes, you see, all you have to do is just make it run a lot of programs so it heats up. So that could be cool, because I like how Dr. Stone explains the concepts they're going over. So this might be one to keep an eye on. Next up was One Piece, chapter 927. And Sanji's been making a lot of noodles. The goal is supposedly to help draw Kozuki Samurai to the area so that Usopp can give them swords. But Sanji, being Sanji, is more interested in getting a bunch of ladies to like his food. And a lot of ladies do like his food. Just everyone thinks that he's amazing. So this is a pretty good situation for him to be in. But some shady folks, I think the term would be racketeers, approach the stand and tell him that if he's going to have his shop in that area, he should pay them, and then they will protect him if someone threatens his business. And he says, "Well, no, I can defend him. I can defend myself." So they just start knocking soba out of people's hands. That was a very bad move because if there's one thing that Sanji can't stand, it's people wasting food. So he stomps one of them into submission, and then Frankie actually takes the other one and suplexes him from on top of a building. So very short fight scene. Um, and then Sanji manages to scrounge up enough noodles that didn't get knocked onto the ground to give to a girl named Toko. And Toko seems to have the ability to make everybody around her smile and laugh. I feel like it's a supernatural thing. Because she tells this kind of corny joke about how, how since we're in Wano, you guys should refer to me as Otoko. But Otoko means man. I'm not a man. Isn't that hilarious? And everyone just busts a gut laughing. It really wasn't that funny. So I imagine that that's, if not a devil fruit ability, then some other mystical power that she has. Once she's done eating, she thanks Sanji for the food, and that makes him very happy to know that she enjoyed it so much. And then, she leaves to go attend a procession towards the capital of the area. The procession being of her older sister, Komurasaki, who is the most beautiful in the land, and she's coming to the palace to meet with the Shogun Orochi. And it's mentioned by a bunch of people that they can't look at her straight because it seems like she's blinding them, supposedly because of how beautiful she is, but I have a feeling that it's similar to Toko's thing, this is some kind of area of effect ability that she has. But definitely an interesting chapter. We get some neat new characters introduced, and it looks like there'll probably be more fighting in the relative future because those racketeers have an organization. So Sanji's probably going to have to fend off more people. The Promised Neverland 115 was the next one, and so we meet the people who are in the middle of that circle who Emma and Dawn and Ray rescued from the demons. They introduce themselves as Jin and Hayato, and they explain that they were sent on a mission by Minerva to go see if there were any survivors of the attack on the shelter. And so when they realize that, oh, these are the people from the shelter, they actually kind of treat them like celebrities because they've done a lot of amazing stuff all on their own, whereas most of the freed humans, like themselves, only got free because Minerva and his people rescued them. So they think that's really cool. They say that now that they found them, they can bring them straight to Minerva. Ray and Dawn decide to double check that they're on the up and up. Make sure this isn't a trap because they always have to be wary with all of the potential dangers in this world. And so they refer to the meeting point as the giraffe's neck. They correct them that no, that's the jaw of lion. And they're like, okay, that must be on the up and up because the only way you would know that is if you got that set of coordinates and decoded it with Minerva's book. So no one who wasn't with Minerva would know that. So they also revealed that the Jaw of Lion actually isn't the destination, it was more of a waypoint. And if they head straight for the base instead, then they can make it in 3 days. Unfortunately, one of the kids who's with the group, named Chris, he was injured during one of the 2 recent attacks. I'm not sure which, because I know that kids got injured in both of Andrew's attacks. Chris is not going to make it for 3 days. The medicine that they were using to help him isn't working anymore. They need more. Explain that there's a farm nearby, though, and they can raid that for medicine. So it looks like Emma and the others are going to get in practice for the kind of farm raiding that they'll presumably be doing more if they join Minerva. Now, I would assume that this is a mass production farm and not one of the more homey farms. Although, actually, if it was a homey farm, that would make more sense if there was medicine there. Because then, obviously, they take better care of people at those kinds of farms. I don't know, we're going to have to wait and see. Hero Academia 209, and so there's just nothing but praise for Team Bakugo, because they did really well, they were awesome. All Might actually says that he got chills from their performance. And Bakugo and Deku have this brief little back and forth about, hi, you can't catch up with me now, I did so amazing. And yes I can, no you can't, yes I can. And, the last thing Deku actually says is, just watch me, which I thought was neat. Kind of a callback to the, to the Endeavor speech is what it feels like. I don't know, it just as likely could be a coincidence, but, I feel like the choice of words was exactly the same. So, All Might says that Bakugo has become a much better friend, which is true. I mean, I'm not sure if you can necessarily call him a friend yet, but at least he's being more civil now. As opposed to telling Deku to die and threatening to blow him up, he just called him a dweeb when their argument was done. So, meanwhile, Monoma seems to have come to terms with the fact that Class B cannot prove its superiority here, because they can at best tie the score. Because he says so long as they all learn from any of the mistakes they made during this competition, it'll make them better heroes later on. And he says that in the end, no matter what happens, everyone is a bit player in the lives of others, and the star of only their own. That was a surprisingly deep thing to come from him, considering how he's usually acting. So that was kind of cool. Onto strategizing, the final group for Class B quickly agrees that the immediate concern is Deku, because he's fast, he's strong, he's basically the same amount of a threat as Bakugo was during the last match. And so Shinso says that the plan should be he and Monoma working together to brainwash Deku. And then on Team A's side, Mineta is suggesting that he can try and lay a trap, he says a vineyard of his sticky balls to catch them off guard. But the girls point out that we'd need a way to lure them into the area first. They're not just going to go charging in and accidentally step on the balls. They're pretty easy to see. And so Deku says that he's going to be the bait. And while his quirk was acting up before, while the others were discussing their plan, he was kind of jumping around the pipes for a while, just to make sure that everything was working well. And so it seems to be all good. He's confident they can win. And Mineta actually says that he kind of misses the old nervous Midoriya sometimes. Incidentally, Mineta hasn't done anything perverted for this entire arc, even though he's gotten a fair bit of focus. So I like this new one-liner focused version of him. If this can keep going, I think that'd be neat. Maybe that twig on his head is supposed to be symbolic of his growing or something. But so All Might isn't going to be able to watch the start of the match because he gets a call from Gran Torino, presumably responding to his question about the vestiges and if Nana ever saw them. And speaking of the vestiges, we see that deep in Tartarus, All for One has sensed his little brother stirring within Deku's mind, and apparently he's been moving around a bit in his cell, which keeps setting the security system off. Not enough that the guns fire at him, but enough that the wardens are getting annoyed at how many times they have to go check. But yeah, he says that he's excited because he's hearing his little brother's voice again for after so long. Since, remember, All Might never saw the vestiges, so presumably it's been a long time since All for One has had a chance to... Actually, that's an interesting thing that wasn't clear before now, is that All for One, this implies, does maintain a connection with One for All, but maybe only if his brother is becoming active within it. So that's actually new information, and could potentially be very dangerous. We also learned from the Wardens, incidentally, that Gigantomachia has been making some disturbances, so maybe he's going to finally make his big debut soon. Yeah, lots of interesting things to look forward to, but I have a feeling that once this competition thing is over, we're going to go back into the more meaty, serious stuff. Um, oh, and speaking of serious things, the next chapter was Chainsaw Man #2, and Denji is riding high off of his new life situation, because this is a huge step up for him as far as he is concerned. The hunter lady notices that he's hungry and suggests they get some food, and he thinks to himself, "Oh, I'm in love. She is an angel." Um, which is kind of sad, that because she isn't particularly nice to him. Uh, just he's been so low over the course of his life that any kind of consideration makes you seem like an angel. Um, but someone runs into the restaurant begging for help because his daughter was attacked by a devil, and so she tells Denji, "Okay, you go handle it, so I can eat the food while it's fresh." And he kind of complains that he was looking forward to the food, and she says that, "You're my dog, you will not tell me no." So he goes out, and now he's grumpy because the nice lady isn't that nice. And then, while he's heading out, his mood completely is tanked because he remembers that he doesn't have Pochita to hang out with anymore, since Pochita is inside of him now. And so, being in this state of mind, when he finds the girl, and the devil uses a possession ability, kind of like the zombie one, I guess, to make her say that they're friends. Uh, Denji falls for hook, line, and sinker because he's still thinking about the devil he became friends with. But no, yeah, this devil just has the ability to manipulate muscles. And so, when it reveals its plot and tries to have her attack him, Denji just goes full chainsaw, kills it no problem. Um, and then he returns to his master with the girl. He says woof when he comes back, and he collapses because he's worn out again. And she ends up catching him again, so I guess he's got that going for him. It's probably something that makes the situation enjoyable. He actually explains that the chainsaw arms cut him as they go around, which makes sense because the blades go around in a circle. So that's gotta hurt. But so that would also explain how he gets so worn down. Um, and so his master reveals their name is Makima. So we finally have a name for her. She asks how he got to be this way in the first place, and so he explains, "Well, my little dog Pochita told me he was becoming my heart, and he's still sad about that because he thinks Manny's dead. That sucks." But she says that that isn't necessarily the case because she has a nose for this kind of thing. Quite literally, I guess she can smell the difference between humans and devils, and Denji has the distinct sense of both separated. They're not like mixed together or anything. So Pochita is still very much alive inside of Denji, so that cheers him up. And then also, because he's so exhausted, she ends up hand feeding him the food that she ordered for him, which is kind of sweet. I don't know how to feel about her. She still seems kind of weird, but also kind of sweet. Then she flat out says he's her type of guy. So she's implying a romantic interest, even though she's still hasn't treated him particularly well. So I don't know if the dog thing is some kind of fetish thing for her or something. I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see how this goes. It's pretty weird, but it's weird in such a way that I am that it continues to intrigue me. So I'm interested to see where this goes. Chapter 91 was next. Naruyuki is on the one hand kinda on top of the world because he just got smooched. I very clearly enjoyed it a ton. But on the other hand, he just learned that Aruka's leaving, and so he's kind of flashing back and forth a lot in his head. But he kind of just eventually settles on telling her that it's cool that she got that scholarship to go overseas. So she says that she hopes he'll watch her, keep an eye on her activities when she goes across seas, and he says he will, which is sweet. But she talks to her friends later about what happened. They point out that no, kissing someone on the lips is not a greeting in any country, especially not Australia. But you got this far with him, may as well go ahead and tell you how you feel. Um, I have to say, I doubt that he would be very opposed to the idea, because again, he really seemed to enjoy that. And indeed, while he's helping Rizu study at her place, that's basically all he's thinking about. Just everything is making him think about what happened back there. But she notices that he's very distracted, and so she asks what's up. He says that, oh, I'm just low on sleep, and she kind of whips out a pendulum that I guess she had on her. She mentioned that she'd been messing around with the idea of hypnotism recently, and so she says, "Oh, I'll try hypnotizing you." I'm not sure what she was going for with that. Maybe to hypnotize him into being not tired or something. I really don't know. But so she kind of waves it around, and it actually works. Just he's his eyes kind of gray out, and he just kind of falls forward. So he's in a trance, and so she decides that since he's open to suggestion at the moment, that she wants to find out what's really bothering him. So she asks him, and actually, the kiss isn't the biggest thing on his mind, even though that is, I'm sure, very much something that he's been thinking about. That's not what's bothering him. What's bothering him is that he is jealous that the other three girls all have a clear view of their goals and are all making great strides toward their goals, and he still doesn't have that. He doesn't have anything to look forward to. And so she asks him if there's anything at all that he wants, anything at all. There must be something that you want. And he says, well, there is, but it would be too selfish of him to try and get that, because he has to be responsible. But she says that he should let himself be selfish with her. That's her exact wording is try being selfish with me right now. And so he wakes up from his hypnotism tucked into bed, which is nice, but the mood takes a complete 180 because he turns over and Rizu is disrobing just right there. And I'm 90% sure this isn't going to go to where it's, implied to be going, obviously, when you see a scene like that. But the more I think about it, the more I'm honestly thinking that might be what she's thinking. Because you say, be selfish with me, and then she's undressing where she knows he can see her because she was the one who put him there. And it's not like she has to get dressed in a room because it was mentioned a bit earlier that no one else is home. She could change in any room in the house she wanted. So I kind of feel like this might be. I just. I don't know what's going to happen. I really am not sure. But it was quite a curveball, considering I was expecting. I wanted a closure with Aruka. That was what I was looking forward to. I was excited about that. But I suppose it does make sense that that happened until the end of the story. Depending on how this goes, it could throw quite a wrench in the works. So I really don't know what's going to happen. But I will say it was a very effective cliffhanger. Um, I will give it that. So next up was Food Wars, chapter 291. And so it makes explicit what was implied last chapter, which was that the lady with the chainsaw just created a new specialty. And the challenge is going to be any chef who wants to move on must make a specialty of their own with beef. It's mentioned that her code name is Sarge, because of her militaristic style of dress and the weapon-like cooking tools that she uses. So we get to see several noir doing their thing. There's one named Marconda who looks like a clown, and he makes his dish using an admittedly very interesting method. He juggles ball-shaped pots with an internal heating element, and he does it fast enough so that the centrifugal force turns them into pressure cookers, which is just a really unique idea. And then the other noir we see include a guy who makes broth using the blood from the meat, which is, again, kind of a neat idea. And a lady who slices ultra-thin cuts of meat with a guillotine, and I'm not sure how that could... I mean, aside from making just very thin slices of meat, I'm not sure how that could be an advantage over anything else. But the noir will pass that we've seen so far, and people are starting to worry that that maybe only the noir are going to make it through. But at that moment, Megami and Takumi, Tsukasa, and presumably Soma, although we don't see him, are all starting to get to work themselves. And none of them seem that worried. They all seem like this is something that they feel like they can do pretty easily. I'm actually quite excited to see what Megami and Takumi in particular are going to make, because we haven't seen any of what they've been making for the convention thus far. They've just passed in the background. So, yeah, looking forward to that. Next up was Blue Exorcist 106. And so it opens with Satan bragging about how powerful he is. And he can crush anyone. And isn't that cool, Yuri? I can crush anyone. You must think I'm awesome. But she yells at him that you don't kill people for no reason. That's not cool. I was trying to teach you not to do that. And so he decides, well, if she's going to be like that, then he doesn't need her by his side. And so he just leaves the facility. But as he goes, he starts summoning demons from all over the place to join him. And they make this kind of black cloud thing in the sky that spooks everybody. And once all said and done, we see that they're kind of... he's got a little throne room that he made up with a bunch of demons. And so Yuri tells everyone that he called himself Satan. And Lucifer says that, yeah, that checks out. I was thinking he was like that because he seemed connected to all of us demons. And that fits the... So Mephisto takes a moment to ask Rin, how do you feel now that you've seen how your father... his origins? And Rin isn't really sure how to take all this. So Mephisto says, okay, well, let's keep going then. And we see 6 months later, things are relatively back to normal, insofar as Yuri and Shiro are back to their normal jobs. That is, until Shiro goes on a mission and discovers Shura, and Mephisto strong-arms him into taking her in. So this is the point in the timeline where he found her. And Yuri actually thinks that this will be good for him, because she feels like taking care of someone will help grow the warm spot in his heart that she has been trying to work on herself. So a little more time passes, and Lucifer's condition is failing again. Presumably, now that they don't have Satan's body that he was possessing to test out the elixirs on, they can't develop deteriorating again. And it actually turns out that he's not the only demon whose body is in bad shape, because Satan has, ever since he's been out of the facility, he's been slowly kind of burning up. So he invades the facility with his army of demons and demands they give him some of what they've been giving Lucifer. And while that's going on, though, he happens to remember Yuri, and so demands that in addition to the medication, he says, bring her to me. And I've got a bad feeling that that I know what's going to happen next time. Yeah, we may be about to see how Rin and Yukio got made. So next up, World Trigger has made its debut as a monthly series with chapter 170, And Kuga and Husei score the first kill of the match by taking out the guy with the lights, so the lights are no longer a problem. And so they go upstairs and start facing off against the combatants up there. But then Husei puts up a barrier, blocking off all of them except for Captain Kageura. And so the neighbor duo take him on at the same time, and he actually manages to hold his own pretty well. Like, there's a reason that he's the captain of his squad. But it's taking too much of his attention for his future sight kind of power to notice that Husei had shot off some Trian bullets on a delayed timer so that they would strike unexpectedly and essentially turning it into now he's fending off attacks from 3 directions at once. But before they can finish him off, we transition to chapter 171. So it looks like there's going to be multiple chapters of World Trigger at once when it comes in each month, as opposed to one long chapter, which, yeah, I mean, however, whatever works for the author. If this will be good on his health, then that'll work. It also gets a decent amount of content at once, because one weekly sized chapter every month would make this story to stretch on for I don't know how long. So Kageura's gunner managed to bust through the barrier to try and protect him, but Kuga actually takes him out, and so that returns Kageura to his former position. And in an attempt to keep Tamakoma from getting a point from him, he jumps down a hole and lands on the ground, and is finished off by Trian leakage from the wounds that he's gotten. There was no mortal wound to him, but he just kind of ended up bleeding out, in a sense, the Trian equivalent of that. And the point goes to Suzunari's squad, because their attack earlier did more damage to him than Husei's attack did. And so Makumo has been watching the goings-on, waiting for a chance to enter the fray, and so he radios Husei asking why he hasn't used his curved bullets yet. Husei says that he's going to fight without them this match, but he'll explain later. My best guess would be that he's just figuring he's doing well enough without them, and so he's going to save them as a surprise for another time. But we're going to have to see exactly what he's planning next month. And in Dr. Stone, Chapter 86, Senku explains that oil was, in fact, an export of Shizuoka at one point, but they eventually stopped singing out because of diminishing returns. It wasn't profitable to dig it up anymore. But so now there should definitely be enough for them to get some now. And Gen says that it's very convenient that Japan just so happens to have everything that we need whenever we need it. Even if they're never going to have access to a ton and will eventually need to find new sources other places in the world. It is quite convenient that the area they're in has all the stuff they need. So Chrome sets off with Kohaku and Ukyo to try and find it, and to find the oil. And Ryusui, meanwhile, delivers an ultimatum to everybody, since he's going to be so important as a captain of their ship, and is going to be responsible for everyone's lives, and ultimately the fate of billions of petrified people. He wants compensation that is fitting to that, so he demands ownership of the oil field once they find it. And then, if they want to use it, even for the voyage, which he himself will be captaining, he still demands that they buy it off of him. And so, currency has now been invented. And I just have to say that Ryusui definitely seems like the kind of person that Tsukasa wanted to cleanse the world of. Like, with this kind of person, I almost feel like he had a point as far as deciding that, hey, let's not bring any of them back. The world will be better without them. And so Yo sees him and he decides, well, he's the most influential person in the world right now. I want to buddy up with him because that's the kind of person that Yo wants to get along with. That's his goal, is to become important. And so he gets hired as basically just a laborer for Ryusui. Not entirely clear what he's doing to earn the money, and he admits that he also isn't entirely sure what he would use the currency for either. Until the guy points him over towards Suika and Mirai are doing this little fundraiser thing, selling cotton candy and ramen to earn funds so that Senku and the others can purchase the oil that Ryusui will own. And they look really adorable. Just these two little girls selling food. And also the manga artist guy is selling pages that he draws. So he's already starting to make a living now. So that's kind of neat. Nice to see he's doing alright. And Senku isn't really that concerned that Ryusui is the guy with all the money right now, because he's pretty sure that he and his folks are smart enough they can exploit the system to their own gain. Meanwhile, the exploration team has discovered that there is a waterfall that was not on the map that Senku and the other before timers sketched up. And so they realize that, oh, geography has had a lot of time to change. And so they call back to Senku because they took a phone with them. And Senku realizes and isn't entirely ready to admit that he kind of dropped the ball with this, that they're in Japan. Japan has Mount Fuji in it, and it erupts, every several centuries. So it had to have erupted a number of times while everyone was petrified, which should have changed the landscape completely and utterly. So they need to draw a new map so they can locate where the oil field was. And to do that, they've decided that the next dimension is going to be creating a hot air balloon. So that's going to be the next chapter or two. Black Clover was next, chapter 185. And so the elf lady chains off all of the exits that were created. And now, unfortunately, she's prepared for them to try that again. So she's not going to let them shout things out and have her make them. She's steeling her mind against that. But what she's not prepared for is for them to combine various aspects of their magic to form a kind of silhouette of the actual Coral Peacock's captain. And so the elf lady accidentally thinks of her, and apparently, within this dream world, that's all it takes to set free the actual captain of the Coral Peacocks as their own person. And so the two get into this gigantic battle, because both of them are warping reality in here. Just this battle of epic proportions until eventually the dream world cannot sustain itself and collapses. And so Magna and Luck finish her off now that she is outside of her space. And that was a very creative way to handle the situation. I absolutely did not see that coming. That was cool. And I haven't been following the anime since I'm not that into this story, but I do think that I would love to watch that battle once it's adapted. Like, reality warpers facing off is just something that could be a source of amazing visual spectacle and creative stuff, and I just think it would be great to watch. So the last chapter in this issue, and it gets the last chapter in an issue now, because the weekly Shonen Jump is switching to the new format, is Seraph of the End, chapter 74. And so Yu is talking to the Hiragi monster, and he seems kind of interested in how it seems to have known him and Ashiromaru. But Ashiromaru tells him, stay focused, close off your mind, or it's gonna take you over. It ends up seeming like Yu is successfully trapped under its influence. But then he breaks free and says, you know what? My past isn't so important that I'm gonna let you, use me for anything. As long as I have my friends and the people I care for in the present, that's ultimately all I need. So he seemingly cuts it up very easily, and he and Ashiromaru work together to banish the chopped up pieces from their inner world, but it pops up again very quickly. Obviously, it was kind of just letting them win, and so now it says, yeah, I was never really gonna help you out. I'm just gonna kill you. And it seems like it has enough power to do it. They are both fighting it together, and now that it's serious, they can't do much against it. But there is still hope, because Shinoa comes in. She enters her inner world, and I guess connects to their inner world because the Hiragi monster went from hers to theirs, so maybe they're connected like that. I'm not entirely sure how she did it. But the monster apparently was really planning on this the whole time. The only reason that it wanted to go after you was because it knew that she would put herself at risk to protect him, and so now that she has let her inner walls down to try and help him, now it can possess her. And so it says, and you knew this was going to happen too, but you thought that it was worth giving yourself up for the one you loved. So, pretty tragic. Yu tries to help her. He wakes himself up and finds that her heart has just stopped. The catch is, she is not dead. She's actually turning into a vampire. Because, as it turns out, the monster that has been haunting the Hiragi clan for who knows how long, as it turns out, used to be the first progenitor of the vampires. And its goal, I would assume, is that it's turning Shinoa into into its host and changing her into a vampire as that goes along. I would assume that once she becomes a total vampire, then she would be a fitting host. That's what I would guess. Although she could just end up being very similar to you with having a super mode that she tries to keep down and presumably will end up using fairly regularly because it looks cool. And yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to see how this goes. This was kind of an interesting turn of events. Uh, Nice to see her, show that she cares and stuff. And it seems quite apparent at this point that you know that she cares. He probably doesn't fully think about it the same way, Uh, but who knows? I mean, I'd ship it. I mean, I shipped it in the first chapter. I think that was when I meant. So, I mean, uh, yeah, interested to see what will happen with that. And so those were all the chapters in the issue. I think I'm going to go ahead and start talking about Hell's Paradise in this discussion thing, just to ease the transition into however I'm going to be doing the next videos. So, Chapter 40 of Hell's Paradise has Sir Senta, who's the guy with the glasses, explaining to Sagiri that the reason he seems to favor Yuzuriha, as Sagiri puts it, is that while he does admire her, the reason he seems so interested in her is because he's jealous of the freedom that she has. That she clearly displays her freedom with every action that she takes. And he says that when he was young, he wanted to be an artist, but because he was an Asaimon, that was not in the cards for him. He's gonna become a samurai executioner. That's just what he has to do. So his path was set. Hers never was, though, and in a nutshell, he just thinks that's really cool. And when it turns out that Tencent is not as dead as they hoped, because of course he isn't, blooming into a flower monster, kind of like what happened with the one that Gabimaru was fighting a number of chapters back. Senta takes the blow that it aims for Yuzuriha, and he becomes flowerified, for lack of a better term. It actually seems, though, like it's not that bad of an experience for him, because we see from his point of view, he ends up in like this field of flowers, and now he can finally paint freely. He's freed from the life that he was forced to be an executioner. So and so the first thing he does is he gets to work on a picture of Yuzuriha, which I thought was sweet. Um, Surprisingly touching, end for this guy. Although who knows, there might be a way to reverse the florification. I'm not sure. As for our tired out heroines, they have a lot more that they want to live for. So, luckily, it seems they're going to be able to, because the blind swords guy, Shion, arrives to finish the battle up for them. So, overall, this was a chapter that got me in the feels more than would be expected, and I'm eager for more. It's cool to see the blind guy, Shion, again, as well as the girl who he's taken on as his apprentice, I guess. It's nice to see her again. It's cool that she's carrying on the will of the executioner who had been assigned to her. I think that's really cool. So, yeah, those were all the chapters uploaded this week, and the schedule suggests that next week, we're going to be getting more than 1 week's worth of chapters, but each quote-unquote issue's worth is going to be going up on a single day. So my plan is I'm going to try and get out a discussion for the first chunk. I'm going to try and get it out before the second chunk of chapters is released. And I actually wanted to double check the schedule just to make sure that I had everything sorted out. But it looks like the site is down now, so that they can go over all of the changes in the website. So I'm excited, so I'm more than willing to not have access to the site for a couple days. If I was wrong, though, it's not like many people will have been misled, because this series hasn't gotten that popular yet. But regardless of that, if you did watch this, and you did enjoy my rambling, then please leave a like and consider subscribing so you can come back next week and hear me ramble some more.